5 movies I recently watched on my horror movie playlist. 1 I still love, 1 I loved more as a teenager, 1 I really wanted to love because the expectations were so high but ended up feeling a little bit disappointed, 1 I absolutely did not love, and then the last movie on this playlist I absolutely fell in love with. So thank you for the suggestions. Everybody out there, thank you for joining today's episode. Thank you for joining my horror movie playlist. And if you haven't already, hit the sub. Movie number 1, which I literally watched on the 1st of January, is my 3rd favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. It's probably the big man's most underappreciated movie, if such a thing is possible for a Tarantino movie. It's technically not a horror movie, but its roots go deep into the horror movie world. Yes, I'm talking about Death Proof. Tarantino's loving tribute to exploitation films and grindhouse cinema of the 70s is chock-a-block filled with nods to the classics of those genres. It's probably also the closest that we've come to seeing Tarantino actually make a horror movie. I mean, what could be more exploitation than a truly twisted individual using his death-proof stunt car to ruthlessly mow down and murder innocent young women? Now, although it isn't his most accomplished movie, Death Proof still remains one of my favorite Tarantino films. And it's not just because I happen to be a big fan, but in Death Proof's case, it's because of the other guy, Kurt Russell. Watching his reign of terror as stuntman Mike is absolutely killer, pun intended. His transformation into fully blown psychopath, creepy and charismatic, is Death Proof's biggest plus. Now for another quick Quentin Tarantino connection, the next movie I watched was actually released in 1994 on the very same day as Pulp Fiction. Not a lot of horror movie fans appreciate the movie Brainscan, a teen horror pick that starred 90s it guy Edward Furlong. Me, I actually liked this movie for a number of reasons. The plot was kind of cool. It's about a troubled teenager who is obsessed with a virtual reality game that begins to blur the lines between fantasy and reality. Although Brainscan has dated a little bit, it remains kind of interesting, oddly relevant. You know what? It does have something kind of creepy going for it. Brainscan is also bolstered by a truly wicked soundtrack by rockers such as White Zombie, Primus and Tad, who give us a fat, dirty, grungy track called Grease Truck, the opening song on the movie soundtrack. But Brainscan's coolest aspect, in my opinion, is a wicked turn by actor Ryder Smith, who gives us the supernatural, menacing character called the Trickster. In my opinion, the Trickster is a demonic hybrid between punk rock and Freddy Krueger. One of 2022's bigger horror movie releases, The Black Phone, was for me both a slight disappointment and yet also a pleasant surprise. I liked the movie, but thought I would have liked it a whole lot more. This film about an abducted teenager who uses a mysterious black phone to communicate with the previous victims of his deranged kidnapper was let down by some patchy performances, a wonky plot, and an uneven tone. However, it does succeed at creating an ominous and nostalgic atmosphere filled with dread and menace, and also Ethan Hawke gives us a great performance as always. Yet, I think more could have been done script-wise with his character, the Grabber. On the whole though, The Black Phone is still a good watch. Now, one movie that I just couldn't quite get into was Christina Ricci's recent supernatural horror movie, Monstrous. It reminded me a little bit of Aronofsky's mind-bending film Mother, with its abstract, arty, psychological horror approach. Monstrous follows a traumatized woman fleeing from her abusive husband with her 7-year-old son. Its convoluted storyline and its very, very slow pace unfortunately weakened a movie with meticulous set design, a strong directorial voice, and what I believe to be a career-best tour de force performance by Christina Ricci. Another thing that this movie does have going for it, but still doesn't quite save it, is its subtle but cool homages to the golden age of horror with films like The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now, this is one film that I absolutely loved, so thank you to those of you who suggested I watch Alice, Sweet Alice. This 1976 slasher horror movie is absolutely awesome. It tells the harrowing story of a young girl named Alice who becomes the prime suspect in the brutal murder of her younger sister. As the investigation unfolds, Alice's family become embroiled in a web of deceit and dark secrets that threaten to tear her family apart. Now, although Alice Sweet Alice is often thought of as a slasher movie, I thought that it actually had quite an unconventional approach to the genre. Rather than relying on cheap jump scares and copious amounts of gore, it uses psychological terror and mystery that makes it closer to Don't Look Now rather than, say, Friday the 13th. With its great performances, its suffocating levels of suspense, and one of the scariest scenes ever, Alice Sweet Alice is simply an awesome 70s horror movie. And it also proves that Hollywood is certainly more than capable of making atmospheric giallo-style horror. So there are the 5 films from my January horror movie playlist. I will also be doing one for February, so keep those suggestions coming. As for next time, as promised, I will be taking 2 John Carpenter classics and pitting them up against each other so you can expect a battle of epic proportions. I really hope that you liked today's episode, and if you did, tell all your friends about it, hit that subscribe, but most importantly, stay safe, stay happy, stay horror.